John Batchelor, Malcolm Hoenlein is here. Quickly, we go to Israel. Professor Eyal Zisser joins us. He's the Dean, Faculty of Humanities, and Director of the Moshe Dayan Center for Middle Eastern Studies at Tel Aviv University. Tel Aviv is also in Israel, along with Jerusalem. Tonight we asked the professor this morning, good morning to you, Professor. We speak of Syria. Within this last week, there has been more mayhem and murder by the regime, especially in Huma, which was the center of the massacre of the previous regime back in the 1980s. It's very difficult to see into Syria right now. It's been presented to me as a surrogate war between Saudi Arabia and Iran. If that is true, who's winning? Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, good morning. Well, you know, Iran, the Saudis, now the Obama administration expressing its concern, the Turks. But I think that the Syrians will be those who will dictate the fate of the country. And, well, you know, the Saudi-Iranian struggle, no doubt there is such a struggle, but it has to do, you know, with the media coverage, with the international arena. But in Syria, the Saudis and the Iranians have very little impact. And, well, what is happening inside Syria has to do with the Syrians, not with the Saudis or the Iranians.
Malcolm?
Yeah, what do you think about the role Turkey has played in the visit this week, the appearance of Assad rejecting the appeal by Erdogan, the warning by the Iranians? How do you see this, the former allies' relationship today?
Well, I'm not highly impressed by the Turkish behavior, because every several weeks, every several days, and we hear, you know, this statement or that statement. Already 2 months ago, Erdogan said that enough is enough. But well, the Turks are the only one who have nothing to lose, and they probably will be the winner in any case. I mean, they were very close, and I believe they are still close, and they are still, in a way, support the Syrian regime, mainly because of, first of all, this close friendship they developed with the Bashar dynasty, but also because they are worried of the Kurdish issue. If the regime collapses, it might affect, of course, the Kurds inside Syria and also the Kurds in Turkey. So they want stability. This is why they support Bashar. But if Bashar falls, well, probably the only available alternative is some sort of a Sunni Muslim regime, Sunni and Islamist. And, of course, taking into consideration that now the AKP, which is a Muslim party itself, is in power in Turkey, they will be the only one who might be very close to such a future regime in Syria. So it's some sort of a double game, you know.
Professor, there was a firing this last week of the defense minister, a man in his 70s, Al-Habib.
Yes.
He was reported dead the next day, but then he was surprisingly alive on Syrian television. This looks like a crack in the regime, especially since all the blood is on his hands. He's ordered the troops and the tanks in. Is this significant? Is this a sign of weakness at the center?
Yes, it's a sign of weakness, but I think that it had to do really with, you know, this man was very close to Bashar al-Assad. He was from his own family, from his own tribe. He's an Alawite. So I think it had mainly with, you know, on the one hand, he's 72, very ill, and I think that the regime was not happy with the ineffectiveness of the army. You know, for almost half a year they are sending the troops and
didn't kill enough, right?
Yes.
Could you tell us quickly about the opposition? Are they unified enough to present some sort of a common front? Are the divisions that have been reported as serious as has been stated? Is there any chance that could shift or into some sort of coherent opposition?
There is no real opposition. There are those intellectuals, NGO activists. This is not a real opposition. All those opposition groups outside Syria have very little influence inside Syria. The unrest, the uprising has to do, with the average Syrian on the street that are not really organized, are not really coordinated. This is one of the challenges facing, the activists on the street, and this is something that helps the regime, because if there is not available alternative, well, many Syrians still prefer this regime to stay in power.
Prefer this regime. It's murderous. It's killed so many people that it must, at this point, wonder what its future looks like. What is Syria a year from now if this murder rate keeps up, Professor?
Well, anyhow, it will be probably a totally different Syria. But let's face it, Hafez al-Assad did it as well. The father of Bashar, he killed more people than his son. One of the problems of Bashar is that he's not, nowadays you can't do what your father did in Hama in 82 when he killed 30,000 people. And remember what happened to Hafez al-Assad. He survived. And, Bill Clinton, George Bush the father, even the Israeli government looked at him as, a great leader.
So you can imagine this regime surviving despite the mass murder and being welcomed back to the Elysee Palace, another afternoon dining with Sarkozy, something like that?
No doubt about it. It's all a matter of interest. And if this regime survives, I'm not sure it can survive in the long run, but if it survives, I'm sure that it will be welcomed back, because unfortunately it's all a matter of interest. And if he survives and if he removes himself from its alliance in Iran, he might be even welcome in the White House.
Professor Eyal Zisser of the Tel Aviv University, speaking on Syria. He's the Dean of Faculty of Humanities and Director of the Moshe Dayan Center for Middle Eastern Studies. The Syrian regime, Malcolm, it's fantastic to imagine after this mass murder that
he would emerge, and the war crimes that people are trying to identify with him. It'll be interesting to follow this in the coming months.
Malcolm, thank you very much. Malcolm Hoenlein, Conference of Presidents, Major American Jewish Organizations. And again, this political statement's becoming necessary, and I will say it, Jerusalem, Israel. Doesn't it feel good, Malcolm? Jerusalem, Israel. Try that, White House. I'm John Batchelor.